Welcome to the Bread and Bars podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Sean, and we're back with another episode of Bread and Bars. I'm excited to see you guys. You know what it is at Bread and Bars. We're here to have dope conversation about amazing things and sometimes with amazing people. But today, it's just me. But stay tuned. I got some things that I'm working on when I'm going to bring some great people on and we're going to have some amazing conversations. These are going to be people from different parts of the country, different parts of the country. I'm not international yet, but we're getting there. I'm not going to speak against it, but it's what it is. What it is. So today's a special episode. Today we're going to talk about self-love. Now, I thought a lot about doing this episode before doing it because there are literally thousands. I would even express to say maybe millions or hundreds of thousands of videos out there about self-love. But I'm going to give you a unique perspective. I hope to give you a unique perspective on what self-love is, what self-love isn't. And ultimately, the title of this episode, we're calling this one Self-Love, Unveiling the Power Within. Unveiling the power from within. The main point I want to get across to you today is that self-love comes from within. It has nothing to do with outward sources. We talked about this in one of our first episodes when we talk about our inherent value. Self-love is probably one of the most valuable things that we can have for ourselves, and it doesn't come from outside of us. It comes from within. The realest version of self-love, the truest version of self-love comes from within. What gave me the idea for this episode was I was listening to my normal R&B, my 90s R&B mix, right? And we know we're listening to Usher, we're listening to Joe, we listen to all these artists that really sang songs. Rome is one of my favorite ones. If you know about Rome from the 90s, man, you know you got a bomb playlist. But I'm listening to these songs and I remember how much passion I used to sing these songs to or with. And I would, the people that I would sing them to. And I remember thinking, like, because I'm thinking about self-love, right? And I'm like, well, what would it be like if I was singing these songs to me? Now, I'm not singing Boyz II Men's I'll Make Love to You to myself, right? But just the overall songs, when we talk about songs that was talking about love, what if we sing those songs to ourselves, right? But that's where I got the idea from this podcast, but we're going to go into it. Now, what self-love is. The definition, self-love is a sacred act of honoring who you are, your light, and your shadow with compassion, patience, and truth. Let me say that again. Self-love is the sacred act of honoring who you are, light and shadow with compassion, patience, and truth. Now, if that's not powerful, I don't know what is. Loving yourself with passion, patience, and truth. Now, one of the best ways that I can describe what real unconditional love is the love that we have for babies, right? If you ever had a baby or you have nieces or nephews or grandchildren or whatever it is, the love that we have for babies, that's so unconditional. Now, even if you never actually experienced having a baby, the love that you have for your pet, cat, dog, turtle, snake, bird, whatever it is, the love that we grow to have for our pets in the short period of time that they're with us, that's what unconditional love is, right? That's actually that same definition, the light, the shadow, the compassion, the patience, and the truth, right? Have you ever had a puppy or a cat in the beginning stages? They were not house trained. The way you cleaned up after that pet, right? You might have been frustrated, but you didn't stop loving that pet. Even if you were mad at that pet for messing up the house, for biting you or biting the kids or whatever the case may be, you might have spanked them or disciplined them in some way, but the next day or the day after, you were back in love with that pet as if it wasn't nothing. And the same thing when it comes to babies. You know, when babies have those accidents and it's all up their back and all over their clothes and things like that, I think it's happened to every last one of my children. right? So in the beginning, that love that you have for them is unconditional. I remember when my sons were really small, they were just learning how to walk. And one of my sons, he actually ended up going into the bathroom. And it was dark in the bathroom, and he wasn't used to being in the dark by himself, but somehow he wandered in the bathroom. And he was in the bathroom, and I remember he called me. He was like, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." I'm looking around the house. I'm like, "Where are you?" And then I noticed he was in the bathroom, and he was just like, He wanted me to pick him up because he was so scared because he was in the dark. And I grabbed his hand. I didn't pick him up, but I grabbed his hand, and he walked out with me. And at that moment, I was like, "Man, that's what love feels like. That's what love feels like, because there's nothing this little man can do that's going to stop me from loving him." And believe me when I tell you, he tried. Believe me when I tell you, he tried. But nothing stopped me from loving him, right? And the same thing when it came to any of my other children. The same thing when it came to my pet, right? But what happens is I never actually had that kind of love for them that I've had for anybody else, nor that I have that love for myself in that same manner. Now, it was one thing to say, okay, you know what? If I can love this person that way, if I can love my watch this, if I can love my mother that way, my sister that way, my wife that way, whoever, it would be cool, right? And I would make attempts to do so, but I failed in every sense of it, right? I did the best I could, but it wasn't 100% unconditional, like with my child or with my pet or whatever. Nor that I actually have that love for myself. Remember, I talked about singing those love songs from the '90s to somebody else and with so much passion and vigor. What if I sang for myself that way internally, right? So I don't want to get off beat. Carl Jung is one of my favorite authors. He's a psychiatrist and philosopher and a writer. He has a quote that says, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That's terrifying, because when you're accepting yourself completely, you're accepting the light, which is easy to do, and you're also accepting the shadow. That part is a lot more difficult. What I think makes it hard for us to love ourselves is because we know all the deep dark secrets there is to know about ourselves. And with that being known, it's hard to say, well, how can I love myself unconditionally when there's so many flaws that I can think about? Not even just when I look at myself, when I think over my life and all the things that I've done, there's so many flaws that I've done. So many flaws that I have and so many bad things that I've done. I could think of a handful of things that I did when I was a kid, or a teenager, and even as an adult. That when I think about loving myself, I'm like, there's no way I can do that because I did this, or because I lied here, because I cheated with this. And listen, I can do all of those things. I can think about all of those things, but still love myself in the midst of that. Really loving myself, um, with all those flaws included. Self-love is rooted in truth, not fantasy. Let me say that again. Self-love is rooted in truth, not fantasy. Gentle, yet fiercely protective. Those are some of the things that self-love is. What self-love is not, this is important, what self-love is not: narcissism and vanity, consistent self-indulgence, denial of faults. Self-love isn't being delusional that you're just this perfect person. That's not what self-love is at all, in no shape, way, form, or fashion. Rumi is also another one of the philosophers that I like, and he has a quote that says, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." Let me read that again. Your task is not to seek for love. Your task is not to seek for love, right? Because love is within you. So it's not your task to try to find it, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it. Man, that's so powerful. Love is already there. So our goal, when we talk about the question of What are we here for? What is life's purpose? One of the main goals is to remove the barriers that you yourself has built, that you've allowed society to build around you that says you can't have this. So the journey is to remove those layers when we're talking about the illusions that go through our minds. We're set here to remove those layers so that we can truly embody and experience that love that comes from within. When we talk about relationships that we've had where we were so in love with somebody, but then that relationship ended one way or the other, whether it's that person's fault or our faults, I've had my equal share of both. What happens is we get so sad, and it's human nature. I understand that. We get so sad, and we're like, "Oh, this person is no longer in my life now. What am I going to do? I'm so broken. I'm so torn. I don't know what to do without that person. That person was my life. I can't stop thinking about them." But what happens is it wasn't that person that actually brought love to us. That person was the catalyst that opened the lid that allowed us to express the love from within. So that person was the catalyst, but that person was never the source of love. The source of love is us, right? What we love about that person is who we were when we were around them. What we love about our children is who we are when we're around them. What we love about our pet is the person that we are, the compassion that we have, the patience that we have, the truth, the authenticity that we have with ourselves when we're around them. Now, again, they are the catalyst, but we are the source of it. We're the distributor of it, right? So that love is always going to be within us. So there's an alchemic process of self-love. So if I can say this, so this is something called the Albedo, Nigredo, and the Rubedo. Albedo, Nigredo, and Rubedo. That is the blackening, the whitening, and the reddening. This is the alchemic process of self-love. This is how self-love transforms us. If you don't know what alchemy is the process of turning base metal into pure gold through an intensive refining process. Turning base metal into pure gold from a uh, by means of a extraneous refining process. Now, there's a book called The Alchemist, which is a very popular book. Um, it's a very short book, so if you haven't read it, it's a great read. But it talks about a journey of a man learning how to find the alchemist, right? Because he wants to learn the skill of turning base metal into gold because of how valuable that skill is, right? So the overall purpose of the book or the message in the book is not that you can actually turn physically metal, base metal into gold. It's more of an inner journey that you have within yourself. So as we from children, we start off in this gold place where honestly we have that love for ourselves as children. That's why we're able to express our imagination. That's why we're able to do silly things. That's why we're able to make as many mistakes as we can. And we love ourselves throughout the process. What happens is as we get older, the world starts to ridicule us. The world starts to judge us. The world starts to tease us and things like that. And then all of a sudden we start to create an ego. We start to find things that people like, find things that people don't like. We see how people treat us when they like us, see how people treat us when they don't like us, and we try to separate. So this is all who we are. But this version of us people like, this version of us people don't like. So what happens is we start to separate the two, right? So this becomes our ego. This becomes our shadow. So then all of a sudden we're coming into life as two separate entities or seemingly separate entities. So the purpose of integrating self-love is really bringing that back into union the way we were meant to be. Okay. So the blackening process is darkness, confusing, self-loathing, facing your shadow, childhood wounds and conditioning. That's the blackening. That's the hardest part. Now, this is perfect timing because we're approaching springtime, right? By the time you're watching this, it's April 1st. Happy New Year, right? This is actually the real New Year. Um, so this time of the year, most people do what they call spring cleaning. So I want to implore each and every one of us to do some spring cleaning internally, right? Because what spring cleaning is we get down and dirty. We start cleaning under the beds. We start organizing closets. We start wiping down baseboards. We start cleaning the top of the refrigerator and the top of the cabinets. We do all of these things where we're really getting down and we're cleaning up our our external houses, right? So that's the blackening process. Now, what imagine if we did that with ourselves, right? And we actually did some scrubbing, little scrub a dub dub with our spirits, with our souls, with our minds, right? Not to necessarily get rid of anything, but just to bring it all out, right? Now we have the whitening process. This is clarity, purity, awareness, discovering your divine identity. I love that. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Discovering our divine identity. Once again, like Rumi said, our purpose isn't to find love because it's already in us, but it's to remove those barriers that cause us to think that we're separate from it and we don't have access to it anymore. And then lastly, there's the reddening, integration, embodiment, living as someone who is already loved, overflowing in peace, wisdom, and groundness. Overflowing in peace, wisdom, and groundness. I love that. I love that for us as a people. I love that for us for humanity. Now watch this. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. There's this video going around about Bishop Marvin Sapp and his whole collection and offering and closing, not locking, closing the doors during offering. And he got a lot of backlash about it. And people that don't go to church is like, this is the reason why I don't go to church. And people that's in the church, some are for him, some are against him. And there's a lot of different things. People are talking about, well, he didn't say lock the door. He said close the doors. So there's a lot going on with that. So out of all of that stuff that I've seen one post where somebody that I know says, all right, guys, this happened, but you're getting distracted. And I'm like, why would she say you're getting distracted? Like, what are we getting distracted from? And I really took some thought about that. Like, no, this is an issue. We got to deal with this. This is blah, blah, blah. This stuff is going on in the church. You're supposed to be representing God, all this other stuff. And she's like, people were getting distracted. Now, I don't know exactly what she meant by we're getting distracted, but I want to agree because of the fact that now I think our main goal is within, to look at ourselves, to see where we are. Because honestly, let me tell you this. I'm not for or against the situation, this or any other situation. But I do know this. If I was taught the same things that he was taught, or you were taught, the same thing as I was taught and had the same experience I was taught, you would probably make the same mistakes that I would make. I would make the same mistakes he made. I would make the same mistakes you made, right? All of our experiences are not the same, right? Your experience different from my experience. Just because my experience and yours is not the same, I might like your experience a little bit better, but that doesn't mean that my experience doesn't deserve to be loved. That I don't deserve to be loved. I read a quote that says that my voice has a right to exist. Now, coming from let's call it a troubled childhood or a traumatic childhood, not feeling as if my voice mattered. That's something that I'm being transparent with you guys now, but that's something that hit me hard, right? That my voice deserves to be my voice deserves to be heard. right? My voice deserves to exist. My presence is, I deserve to exist. I love that, right? So in this process of self-love, we got to take away the illusions. We got to take away all the things that we've been taught or that we've been told that tells us that we can't be loved because of our faults, because of our flaws, because of our shadow. We got to take all of that stuff away. We really got to focus on the love from within. Because what happens is when we actually access that love from within, it becomes a real superpower. Now, because we're human, we have emotions. I'm not saying that having self love will make you impervious to pain. You're still going to experience pain at some point. But by having that superpower as self love or seeing self love as a superpower, more than just pampering yourself or taking care of yourself. And that's a part of it, but that's not all that it is, right? When I first heard about self love, I thought that's just what it was. You know, as long as I keep my hair cut and wear nice clothes and bathe every day and do all these things and get manicures and pedicures, then that's me loving myself. It's a part of it, but that's not the entire thing. Loving yourself is loving the good parts of you, loving the bad parts of you, right? If you're the type of person where you feel as if you're out of shape, loving yourself is going to the gym to take care of yourself, not because you hate your body, but you're going to the gym and you're doing these things to take care of yourself because that's what you do with the things that you love. When we talk about our babies, we talk about our pets, we talk about sometimes our cars, the things that we actually have a great high esteem for, that we claim to love, these material things or people outside of us. How do we take care of them, right? The way we take care of them is how we should take care of ourselves. Now, this is something that hit me. When we make promises to ourselves, self-love allows us to keep those promises that we make to ourselves. But it became so easy for us to break promises to ourselves. Like we could say, you know what, I'm gonna wake up at 10 o'clock and I'm gonna do my chores. I'm gonna go out running, or I'm gonna clean the house, or I'm gonna do XYZ. But what happens is 10 o'clock comes around and we're doing this. Scrolling, watching video, sharing memes. Ha ha ha, that's funny. That's what we're doing, right? Meanwhile, we forgot to keep a promise to ourselves, and we've done it for so long that we don't even think of it. We don't even think of it as an issue, right? Even when it comes to me starting this podcast, this is something that has been in the works for a very long time. But as I'm starting this self-love journey, I said, you know what? I really have to get to the point where I do the things that I say I'm going to do. I have to keep the promises that I set for myself, right? So in this whole process of me doing this podcast is me keeping a promise to myself. And I'm still growing in it. I'm not perfect. I still break promises to myself sometimes, and I'm trying my best not to, right? I break promises to myself because of the fact that I wanted to fit in, right? The promises that I had for myself didn't necessarily align with other people. So I was like, you know what? I'll be okay. I need to do this because I need to be accepted by this person or this group of people or whatever the case may be, right? But those days are numbered because now I'm learning to keep promises to myself. And if you find yourself in a position where you're breaking promises to yourself, right? Um, make that adjustment. Now, I'm not saying to judge yourself or beat yourself up about it because we're human, right? We have to love our lights and we have to love our shadows. So what happens? But love yourself into being the best version of yourself possible, right? The main point I want to get across, or one of the main things I want to say tonight is, or today, because it's Tuesday morning when you're watching this, or afternoon, whatever, um, is that you love yourself so that you can be the most authentic version of yourself. Now, there's a chart that I discovered that shows the different levels of vibrations, right? So you have the highest vibration feelings, you have the lowest vibration feelings, and the lowest ones, I believe, is fear, guilt, and shame. right? I think shame and guilt were at the bottom, and right above that was fear. So those are the lowest ones that you can have. The highest ones that you can have is enlightenment, and authenticity. Authenticity is the highest one. Authenticity is what you have when, regardless of who you're with, where you are, what you're doing, you are loving yourself. You're bringing your entire self. You got your light, you got your shadow. You're bringing your entire self to your whatever experience that you're at. That is the main goal. There's nothing that should be separating you from your shadow self. It's all one piece. We're all one piece. That's how we were made. We were wonderfully and beautifully made. And there's no version of God that we see as the lowest. There's no version of God that we see as fearful or shameful or guilty in any way, right? And we are one with him. So how can we see ourselves in that way? Listen, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share this video with you guys about self-love. This is a very, very, very powerful power that we can actually embody, that we have access to, right? There's plenty of books that you can read. I want to encourage you to continue your journey with self-love, right? If you started it and you kind of feel good about yourself, let's continue going, because it only gets better as time goes on. I'm in the beginning stages of my journey of self-love. I want to do everything in my power to make sure that I express it to those that I'm around. Anybody who gives me an ear or give me something that I can an opportunity to share with them, I'm going to share it, because it is the most powerful revelation that I've ever come to in my life of what it means to actually love myself so much, where the love comes from within, right? I've always given love out of, like, I was pouring out everything I had into something or somebody else. But in fact, the way love is supposed to be shared is that it's supposed to overflow from me, and the people that are closest to me would actually get that overflow of love. So that way I'll never run out, right? Not only are they actually pouring into themselves or getting love themselves to overflow, but my overflow is dripping into their overflow, and their overflow is dripping into my overflow, and it's just a constant flow of love, right? So whether that person stays in my life or not, whether that person leaves or not, I'll be okay, because there's no love lost. I guess that's where that term comes from. There's really no love lost, because I'm still at my capacity. They're still at their capacity. Now we just have different journeys that we're traveling, right? So that's my time with this episode. I'm excited to share this with you guys today. Please like, please comment, please share, please subscribe to this channel. Every Tuesday we're posting videos. Again, I want you guys to stay tuned, because I got some very, very, very interesting things coming up. I got some guests that I'm going to bring on. I'm excited about it. This is our first set of guests that we're getting. I sent some invitations out, and I got some positive feedback from it. So I'm excited to see how that's going to come. I'm going to introduce you guys to some people, and I'm going to be introduced to some people. So we're growing. So I want to thank you guys for watching. For those that watch from day one, those that watch every episode, I appreciate you. You're part of the reason why I do this, right? I'm the main reason why, because this is something I promised to myself. But you know what? I also promised that to you guys that I would bring something to you each week, and that's what we've been doing. I'm going to continue to do it. I love you guys with an unconditional love. The reason why I can say I love you is because I'm overflowing with love for myself, right? There's no love lost with any of you guys. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. This has been another episode of Bread and Bars Podcast. Share this wherever you share cool things. I had a great time having a dope conversation with you guys. You guys are awesome people. Again, leave your comments, like, share, subscribe. You guys have a good one. Thanks for watching Bread and Bars Podcast.